Welcome to More Than a Paycheck, the podcast for high achievers who feel trapped in their job but know something has to change. If your bad manager and toxic work environment have you stressed and working crazy hours, and you want an easier solution than finding a new job, you're in the right place. Let's do this. Hey y'all. Okay, we just finished up our toxic workplace series, and we're about to dive into a 4-part series on burnout. I'm excited about this. We're going to dig into what to do if you're burned out, how to not get to a place where you're burned out, how to feel good again if you have been there, and how to be stressed in a sustainable way. Work is stressful. We're not going to put on our blinders and pretend like it's not, or keep looking for some like magical job that doesn't exist where there's no stress. We're going to learn how do you do it in a sustainable way. So I really went through some hard bouts of burnout multiple times in my life, but really the time when it had the longest and most challenging impact was when I ultimately decided to leave Amazon and go full-time doing my coaching business. I had been at Amazon almost 12 years. Again, it was amazing. I worked with some phenomenal people that are still some of my best friends today. I learned so many invaluable lessons, but I was tired. My last rotation there that I was there for, I don't know, it must have been 2 or 3 years. I can't remember exactly. I basically was on call 24/7, 365 and dealing with some pretty intense situations that were just, I should say, stressful and had very high visibility at the company, and they were high pressure, right? And I was burned out. And when I gave my notice and when I left, I knew this. So I'd kind of planned on taking a couple weeks to transition and rest. And I'm usually a pretty even keel person. I don't have these like extreme highs and extreme lows. Like I bounce back and forth pretty quickly. So I kind of had the impression I'll leave and, take a break for a couple weeks, then I'll bounce back and be back to my normal self. Well, that didn't happen. When I finally stopped, it honestly got a little bit worse before it got better. I think of it kind of like in terms of high stress, when you just go and hit the deliverable. When you stop and take a break, you start to get sick, right? Your body's just so worn out, it crashes and it needs to recover. The same thing had kind of happened, but I think of it as like I had the emotional flu almost. Like I just was so tired. I described it as like I was like tired in my bones, and just sleeping and resting wasn't going to fix it. I also knew like all day self-care, not going to fix it either. Again, not sustainable. I had a business to run and a family to support, but I was so burned out. One of the key pivotal moments that really helped kind of get me out of it was a moment I remember. I was working with my coach, and she just asked me, we were doing lots of things, and she's kind of asked me, she's like, where in your body do you feel good? Where do you feel safe? And I just totally burst into tears. And it was such an aha moment that I was like, I was pretty numb to what I was feeling. Again, I was getting out of bed, I was functioning, I was taking care of my kids, I was doing things, but I couldn't pinpoint anywhere in my body I felt good. Working with my coach helped so much. I met with my doctors to check on some other issues that were potentially happening. And I also found a book that really helped give words and explain what I was going through and helped me kind of know how to move forward. So this book, I'll link to it in the show notes. It's a really great book. It's called Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. Super great read. Again, it kind of helped me verbalize it. Where the book really helped is it told me kind of what to do, where my coach really helped me know how to do it. So burnout back in the 1970s was initially kind of coined a phrase. It's not actually like a diagnosis. There's 3 different ways that burnout usually kind of manifests itself in us as humans. There's this depersonalization where you separate yourself emotionally from your work. There's also like a decreased sense of accomplishment where you're working harder and harder, but for less and less. You feel like it's making a difference even less and less. And the third way is kind of just this overall emotional exhaustion. Now, very broadly speaking, as they've continued to study burnout today, again, this is like a huge generalization, so this is not for everyone, but generally, burnout manifests itself for men as depersonalization, right? So separating that emotional self from work. And for women, it tends to manifest itself as the emotional exhaustion. One of the questions I get asked often is like, how do I know if it's burnout or depression? Again, burnout is not like a clinical diagnosis per se. I think of burnout as like, it's this overwhelming exhaustion. Again, you're kind of emotionally separating yourself. You're emotionally exhausting. You're working harder and harder, but it feels like it's having less and less and less of an impact. So burnout is you're still able to like show up and get out of bed and do things, where depression has very other symptoms. Now, again, I'm not a doctor. Go to your doctor and get clinical diagnosis. But usually with burnout, you're still able to kind of function as normal, but it's just this overwhelming exhaustion. Okay. It's a lack of an ability to deal with the stress you're feeling, to deal with kind of those stress cycles. In the next episode, I'm going to dive deep into what are these stress cycles and how do you deal with them so you don't get burned out. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that. I love in this book, Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle, they talk a lot about our feelings being like tunnels. And you have to go through the darkness of the tunnel to get to the light at the end of them. So stress is not bad. Stress is just another tunnel we go through. But when we get stuck in it, that's where it's bad. I think of, as I was reading this part of the book, I'm a spaz, but you all know this. I think of that part in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like the old Gene Wilder version of the movie, if you've ever seen it. The kid Augustus, like he loves chocolate and he's drinking out of the chocolate river and he falls into it and he goes into this pipe and he gets stuck in it and the pressure of the chocolate's building up and the Oompa Loompas are freaking out. But in my head, this is where I was like, oh, when you're stuck in these stress cycles, when you're not dealing with these feelings, when you're stuck in these tunnels, it's exhausting because there's all this pressure building up trying to get you to go through the tunnel, but it's dark and it's scary and it doesn't feel safe. And as you're going through the tunnel, if you stop, you've lost your momentum. It's harder to get going again, right? So if you're afraid of uncomfortable feelings and you're feeling stressed and disconnected and overwhelmed and all of these hard emotions at work and you're uncomfortable with it, you're more likely to get stuck in these tunnels because you're not still going through it and getting out on the other side. Quick interruption. If what you learn on this podcast is helpful, this is just the beginning. Your next step is to go and schedule a coffee chat, and we're going to dive into your specific situation. You'll leave knowing a few things you can try right away to get unstuck. And no, this is not a sales call. My goal is to help however I can. If I think coaching can help, I will tell you about it, but I'm currently on a wait list for new clients. Click the link in the show notes or go to lindsaylymancoaching.com/chat and get on my calendar. I only offer a few of these a week, and it's first come, first serve. All right, back to the podcast. If you're anything like me, like you kind of grew up thinking uncomfortable feelings, they're dark and scary. They're not tunnels to get through. They're like these dark, scary caves with creepy things in them, and they're gross and they smell, and we want to avoid them at all costs, right? Because once you go in, you can't get out. Self-care is not the answer to burnout. Self-care is just taking a rest. Now, it's important. I'm all for it, but it's not going to solve the problem. When we want to try to be emotionally healthy so we don't burn all of our emotional self down to the ground and burn out, emotional health is not feeling good all the time. It's allowing yourself to feel and cope with the ups and downs of life. It's allowing yourself to keep going through all of those tunnels of emotions that are going to come. Again, I'm going to dive into that a lot more in the next episode, but I want to give you today 5 core basic areas of overall emotional health. These were the things that I started with as foundational pieces as I left Amazon and I was just feeling really burned out and stuck and low. These were the 5 key areas that I started with, foundational things. I still go back to this list almost daily and just kind of do a check-in, okay? So I want to talk to you about what are these 5 core basic areas of overall emotional health and offer you to think about if you are in this state of burnout, what's just one area you want to pick on and try to work and improve on this week, okay? We're not going for A's and B's here. So the first area is sleep. So we all know sleep is so important. There's tons of data, tons of studies out there. There's tons of great ideas. Essentially, you want to have healthy sleep practices. You want to make it a priority. If you know you're not getting enough sleep, stop going to bed so late, right? We know data has shown it's healthy not to sleep with your phone in your room. It's healthy to have the same sleep patterns where you go to sleep and wake up at the same time of the day every day. I found for myself, if I'm snoozing, even if I could sleep in, but I'm still just snoozing, that's not a healthy sleep practice. For me, as I was going through trying to recover from burnout and focusing on sleep, it was a lot about going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time every day. It was a lot about not hitting snooze, because I found when I did that multiple times, I was getting another 5 or 10 minutes of sleep, but it really was impacting the rest of my day in a negative way. My goal is 8 hours of sleep a night. Truth be told, I'm still not there. I usually get around 6 to 7. For me, that also meant, as I was making sleep a priority, meant I had to get some kids out of my room. I had to try to stop kids from coming into my room in the middle of the night. So I had a kid for a while who would get really anxious in the middle of the night. So I would just set up a little bed for them on the floor so they didn't need to wake me up. They could just come in and sleep on the floor. If you're struggling with burnout, I encourage you to look at what are your sleep patterns and habits. Are you getting around 8 hours of sleep? Is it good, healthy sleep? If not, I can help you get creative on some ways we can do that, but sleep is one area you could focus on. Another of those 5 core basic areas is light. Natural light, and ideally as close as possible in the morning when you wake up. Getting that early morning light, even if it's a cloudy day, just that natural light, it helps your circadian rhythm and it will help with your sleep as well. So as I was kind of struggling with this burnout, I realized I was pretty good at going outside first thing when I woke up, mainly because I have a dog who I have to take out to the bathroom, which helps. But I would stay out there for a while in the summer when it was a little bit warmer and the sun was brighter and it was nice and sunny. And in the winter, I'm like in and out as fast as I possibly can. And often when I'm taking the dog out in the morning, it's still dark out. And I could tell a difference. This was impacting my mood. So now when I take the dog out, this morning it was about 8 degrees outside. I make a point to stay out there for a couple minutes and soak in the light. And if I'm taking the dog out and it's still dark out, when it's light out, I will go outside as quickly as I can and just take a couple minutes there. I make a point to get natural light as often as I can. Again, having a dog has really helped me with this. I'll take a short 10-minute walk in between calls quite often most days. You want to get outside and get some natural light, even if it's cold and it's wet. Go outside. This is another area you can focus. Again, you don't need to do all of this, but sleep and light are very important. The third is nutrition. Now, I'm not going to dive into all of the ins and outs of this. Essentially, eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, and eat things that feel good in your body long term. This is an area I still have room to improve on. I mean, I can improve in all of these areas, let's be honest. As I'm working to kind of improve my relationship with food, I know I feel better short-term and long-term when I eat fruits and vegetables and things that are closer to their natural state. And I also know I love Diet Coke and desserts, and I'm a really good baker. So I've noticed when my mood is crap or I'm feeling burned out, I try to balance that with eating something that I know feels nutritious to my body. The fourth area is movement. We're not talking running marathons here. We're talking walking the dog for 10 minutes. Now, walking the dog is a bonus because you get movement and light, right? It's a double hit. But movement might just mean getting out of bed and walking around the house for a little bit. It might mean rocking back and forth while you're in bed if that's all you're capable of. It can be more intense if you want. Go dance, go play, go swim, go swing on the swings. There's no wrong way to do this, but you just want to make sure you're getting movement daily. Again, we're not trying to get our heart rate up for a certain amount of time. Like, we're not talking this type of fitness movement goal. Go for that if that's what you want, but we're burned out. We're tired in our bones, but we need some movement every day. And the fifth area to focus on is connection. And this is connection with self, connection with others, and connection with a higher being. If you're struggling with burnout, is connection where you want to focus? Are you feeling seen and heard and loved and supported by yourself, by others, by a higher being? Focus on connection. Do you need a hug? Do you want to laugh? Do you need to vent? Do you need to be in the same room as someone? Do you need to be alone in a room? Do you need to listen? Do you need to pray? Do you need to meditate? There's no wrong way to do this, but connection is another core element of the 5 key elements of emotional health. So what's crazy to me is if you think about this at work, we're often inclined to do the opposite of almost all of these things. We stay up late working, so we don't get great sleep. We're inside with the blinds closed. I used to always fight with all the tech guys around me because they all wanted the blinds closed and I wanted them open. But we're staying up late. We're working inside, blocking out the light. We're eating crap from the break room. We're sitting at our desk all day, getting hours of fake online connection through instant messages and emails and video calls. Like, it's no wonder we're feeling burnt out. Just start with one area you want to try something on today. You'd be amazed how much better you can start to feel, even if you're still failing at all of it. But making progress, not perfection, is where you're going to start to feel better. We just want forward progressions. Small changes, small steps in any of these 5 areas are more likely to have a long-term lasting impact than if you try to make big, huge swinging changes because it won't stick. So make sure you're subscribed because we're going to dive into some other areas of how to deal with burnout and how to not get to a place of burnout. But if you are in that space, think about these 5 key areas and just pick one to try something. Sleep, light, nutrition, movement, and connection. All right, y'all. You're amazing. You got this. We'll talk soon. Hey, you didn't schedule a coffee chat yet. Remember, that's the next step. There's so much more I can help you with. You're going to leave this coffee chat knowing a few things you can try right now, depending on your specific situation. This is not a sales call. My goal is simply to help however I can. If I do think coaching can help, I can tell you about it, but I'm currently on a wait list for new clients. Click the link in the show notes or go to lindsaylymancoaching.com/chat to get on my calendar. I only offer a few coffee chats a week and it's first come, first serve, so don't wait. Chat with you soon.